Chapter 41 This child is an alien. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mr. Bell. After getting up early and washing up, Hestia, who was wearing a short white dress, came to Bell's room with bare feet and brisk steps. Hestia, who had just entered the room, was stunned. She originally thought that Bell, who had slept all day, would get up early in the morning, but who knew that she had already woken up, but Bell was still lying on the bed. Hestia, don't run around the room. Just when Hestia was wondering why Bell was still asleep, Faith came up from behind. Glancing at the situation in the room, Faith was also stunned for a moment. Isn't this child sleeping for a day? Why hasn't he got up yet? Continuous work without sleep for 3 days is very exhausting, and the other party is just a child who has just become an adventurer. This impact must be great, but it is not so big. Faith took a closer look, his pupils shrank suddenly. Why did this child's energy of life increase so much all of a sudden? Besides, why is it still increasing? The breath of life is equal to the lifespan to the people of the lower world. The chi of life of ordinary people will not increase all the time, and the chi of life will show an upward and downward trend according to the growth level of different races. It can be said that the chi of life measures a person's spiritual state, and whether it is in a rising or falling stage. The same chi of life has a constant value for everyone, and the highest value can only grow to that stage, which corresponds to the peak stage of a person. For a child who is still growing, the chi of life comes from the stage of growth, and it is normal to grow more at this stage. The energy of life witnessed by Faith has obviously exceeded the level that this age should increase, and even far exceeds the level of 3 or 4 times this constant value. But Faith was sure that the child's vitality was still at a normal standard yesterday, and it was just such a day's effort that this change occurred. This change is a bit too abrupt. Hestia had come to Bell's bed when Faith was thinking about the question. As she got closer, she saw some subtle spasms in Bell's body, not exaggerated, but quite frequent. This made Hestia suddenly change to a worried face, and she quickly turned her head to look at Faith who was standing at the door. Faith, how did Mr. Bell become like this? Yeah, I still want to ask this question. Faith woke up immediately after being asked. She ambled to Bell's bedside, muscle spasms almost visible. Under normal circumstances, people should really be called to take a look, but now this is obviously not a normal phenomenon. Faith carefully checked Bell's mental and physical condition, and found that the child's body was always tense, and his expression was a little distorted after falling asleep, especially when his body was touched. This gave Faith a clear answer. There should be some changes in the child's body. Looking at his expression, he knew that he had suffered a lot of pain before, but the child was very tough. He held it back by himself, and he didn't even make a sound. Although not skilled in medicine, Faith is not a god who is completely ignorant. Some basic conditions can be seen even by gods who are not proficient in medicine, but the understanding of the situation is not as detailed as those of gods who are proficient in medicine. There are many conditions that can cause spasms in the body, but none of those problems are as simple as muscle cramps. And it's not that the symptoms of muscle cramps are just simple, but the cause is much simpler: pain. Severe pain. This is a symptom that can easily cause a muscle spasm reaction. However, it depends on the individual's physique what kind of pain to bear to have such unusual symptoms. The better the physique, the stronger the natural tolerance, but since Bell is only a newcomer who has just received the favor for a few days, his physique is definitely not very good. But even so, the pain in Bell's reaction was definitely not light. If it's just an ordinary LV.1 adventurer, it's definitely a dead weight. Faith said the answer in his heart. She didn't dare to say it directly in front of Hestia, otherwise this idiot would definitely go out to find God again. The fewer gods you see in this phenomenon, the better, and being able to block them in the circle of the two of them is undoubtedly the best result. This child's body has undergone some changes. Hestia, pay close attention to this child's energy of life. The breath of life. Hestia focused her attention on her eyes. Immediately, she saw that the energy of life in Bell's body was almost overflowing, but how could this be possible? It shouldn't be such an exaggerated increase. Mr. Bell's situation was very stable before, how can the time of day change so much? Apparently Hestia also knew the meaning of the breath of life, but it was because she knew that she was even more curious as to how such a big change happened to Bell's body. Faith Toss came to the same conclusion. But now the child's physical condition has changed, and it has changed so much in just one night. Therefore, at this moment, Faith Toss can be sure that this child is either born unusual or has an abnormal ability. However, it is still human in terms of breath, it should not be a monster in human skin. Faith Toss also thought of another answer for a while. Is this child raised by the dark faction? This answer sounds a lot more reliable. After all, the dark faction will also cultivate very good children. However, their ultimate goal of raising children is to destroy the city, which is fundamentally different from the idea of the gods raising their relatives. Although this answer sounds very reliable, Faith Toss does not think that this child is the bait thrown by the dark faction. Even if those dark factions plotted to destroy Orari, those guys wouldn't throw out such a good child. If it is to attract the attention of the gods, then this child is too cautious. In addition, in order to attract the attention of the gods, there is no need to disregard the cost. There are obviously other lower-cost methods, given that the dark factions are not a bunch of fools. Faith Toss is more inclined to be that this child may be a very special outlier. As for the changes that are happening to this child now, in fact, referring to the child's skills and magic, Faith Toss feels that this change is not a big deal. P.S. For collections, for flowers, for evaluation. Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 42. If it hurts, call it out. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It took nearly a day for Bell to wake up from the dream. The moment he opened his eyes, Bell couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. The filthy air spewed out of his mouth, filling the room with an unpleasant stench. The smell made Bell frown, fighting the stench to get up and open the window to ventilate it. A refreshing wind blew into the room, taking away some of the stench in the room, making the smell in the room normal. Bell leaned out of the window. The smell in the room was so strong that he couldn't stand it. I'm going, is that what I exhale? Why does it feel more flushed than the smell of the toilet? Thinking of this, Bell sighed cautiously at the palm of his hand. Careful sniffing, and didn't smell any odor, which made Bell relieved. Bell didn't want to smell like a toilet as soon as he opened his mouth. After taking a few breaths, Bell also vaguely understood why he exhaled such a stinky breath just now, which probably has a lot to do with the dress he received. Unlike the pain all over her body before she went to sleep, Bell felt surprisingly good now. Physical condition, breathing, and even vision and hearing have become much more sensitive. Next time, be careful. The costumes themselves are for heroic spirits. Those costumes don't have physical requirements in the game, but in reality it's different. It was said to be cautious and careful, but it turned out to be careless on this issue. It's too bad a preconceived idea at the end of the day. Once you have your own judgment on some things in advance, it is easy to mislead your own judgment in the future. However, it's good news that the attire is not the only setting that is imposed in the game. No matter what kind of attire you draw in the future, as long as you work hard to draw 5, maybe I can in reality. Absorbing a gift, but the same gift should not be able to be absorbed. It is even said that the gift needs to be fully broken before it can be absorbed, otherwise the effect will be much worse. Bell didn't know if the absorbed costume could be strengthened later, but because he didn't know, he needed to treat it as no. However, there is still a chance to test. As long as it can continue to be strengthened after absorption, then Bell does not have to wait until it is fully broken before absorbing the costume. However, it is still better to test with some low-star costumes. If it doesn't work, that costume is completely useless. In order to prevent a dress from being completely scrapped, it is better to use some low-star dresses as test items. If you count how many days I was in a coma, it should have been a week since I came to Orari. Next, I need to start accumulating my own attributes a little bit, and then start moving to the lower level. But before that, you still need to determine your own magic. It still takes time to get used to the use of magic, and where is the limit of your own attributes. There was still time, and Bell wasn't in a hurry. Now he is just a rookie adventurer. He has more time to grow, and there is a lot of room for him to prepare. It's just that the number of adventurers on the first floor is not very large, and it is relatively easy to hide. However, the number of adventurers will increase once they enter the lower level, and if they want to continue to hide their actions, they need to enter a more hidden place. In addition to accumulating strength, you also need to hide yourself, which is a little more troublesome. Of course, this is just a little more troublesome. As long as he confirms that he is not being targeted by that beauty god, then he, a rookie adventurer who is like a lot of people, won't be noticed. Bell subconsciously touched his chin. When he goes to the dungeon next time, not only can he wear a windbreaker, he can even wear a mask that covers his face, and even his voice can be handled. Again, hiding should be like that. Suddenly there were footsteps in my ears, one heavy and the other light. There should be two people. Bell then stuck his head in through the window. Smell it carefully. The stench in the room has been swept away by the wind, and if the sense of smell is not particularly keen, it will not be easy to smell. Went to the door and opened the door. Bell, who opened the door, was slightly surprised by the two people standing outside. Lord God, he faith toss. Hestia hurriedly walked into the room and threw herself on Bell's body, carefully examining Bell's body. Hestia breathed a sigh of relief after simply confirming that Bell's body was fine. Looking at Bell again, the overflowing vitality of life has eased a lot, but it is still increasing continuously, and it has gradually begun to grow in a direction other than ordinary people. This is certainly good news for Hestia. That means Bell will have a longer lifespan in the future, rather than being limited to the decades of ordinary people. If possible, Hestia really didn't want to see her first child grow old a little bit. And now Bell's body has changed in this direction. Mr. Bell, do you feel anything strange about your body? Lord God, are you saying that I felt pain in my body before? This sentence made Bell realize that God Sama had come to his room. Bell was not surprised. After all, he had slept for a long time, and it was only natural that Lord God came to check on him. There is no way to hide the damage caused by the dress on the body, but there is no need to hide this aspect. I also woke up once because of the pain in my body. But after the pain passed, I went back to sleep. Did you fall asleep after the pain? He faith toss somewhat admired Bell's tolerance for pain. The soundproofing effect of this room is not so good, a little louder sound will be heard by outsiders. But Bell didn't make a sound when he was in pain, which was a bit unusual. And he faith tos didn't faint from the pain listening to what Bell said, but carried the pain to the end. But Hestia didn't have any idea of admiration at all, and was even a little angry. Bell-kun, since you feel the pain, you should scream out loud. I can only hear it if you scream out loud. Bell was a little helpless. It was because he didn't want the Lord God to know that he had been patient all the time. After all, this matter was actually the biggest secret to him. And Bell didn't want Lord God to see him like that. He faith tos picked up Hestia's back collar and stopped her from continuing the conversation. This idiot, at this time, you should think about the boy who doesn't want to let his own God see his appearance. Boys have this problem. Hestia, your child is fine, so don't pursue it now. Let's connect your child with that short knife first. Oh, yes. Mr. Bell, take off your clothes first. P.S. For collections, for flowers, for evaluation, celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 43 The Short Sword of Not Bad and Growing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bell, who had taken off his shirt, was sitting on the ground with his back to the person. Hestia was dripping blood on Bell's back, and a pale white light curtain had slowly appeared. Now what Hestia does is update Bell's data, and then link Bell and knife together. In this case, Belle becomes the only user of the knife. It's just that Hestia stared blankly at the extra magic in the data when she was updating Belle's data. Hestia remembered that Belle hadn't been to the dungeon for 3 days since he started forging weapons. After finishing the forging of the weapon, Belle passed out for a day, then slept an extra day for inexplicable reasons. So why did Belle, who didn't leave the room, awaken a new magic? He faith toss, come and have a look. Something happened again. He faith tos subconsciously glanced at Belle with his back turned. Ever since the child became Hestia's family, she felt like she could get some surprises every day. He took a step forward and looked at the data behind Belle's back. A brand new magic appeared, which made he faith toss face twitching. Another magic. Royal Thunder, quick attack magic, Imperial Thunderbolt, very simple introduction, but sometimes the simpler the introduction, the more problematic it is. The favor system just gave such information, not even the incantation to use magic. What does that mean? This means that no incantation is required to use this magic. This alone makes this magic stand tall among countless magics. In addition, the type of this magic is not clearly written, or the name of this magic has already introduced this magic clearly enough. Royal Thunder, the magic of enforcing thunder and lightning. You must know that the term envoy can be used in a wide range of applications, but this magic is written so ambiguous. This means that the scope of application is very wide, and it is not even limited to any one direction. Another reason enough to push this magic to the top. There is no need to recite incantations and the range of use is not limited. This is how the magic of Royal Thunder gives he faith tos. Even he faith toss knows that such a wide range of use can give this magic a lot of room for improvement. But this kind of magic is different from traditional magic. Maybe the upper limit of this magic is very high, but the lower limit will also scare people to death. It all depends on the individual's level of development of this magic. As long as the development depth is sufficient, the scope of application of this magic will be very wide. But if it is not developed well, the lower limit of this magic will also be scary. This kind of magic might be the best choice for an adventurer. Practical magic, magic that needs to be functionally developed in actual combat. But for a newcomer, this magic is too new. He faith toss could see the depth of this magic, and could see that this magic could make an adventurer go very deep. Maybe this is just a magic, but as long as you study the application direction of this magic in depth, then this magic can be worth 100 magic. This can be said to be a magic that puts hope in the future. He faith could see it, and naturally Hestia could see it too. Almost after a short period of stupor, Hestia saw through the essence of this magic, and saw that the future of this magic could take Belle very far. But the key is that the current level of this magic is really low, and it is very difficult for this magic to bring the most direct and substantial help to Belle. Put your hope in the future magic. Belle-kun, you got another very sharp weapon. But this magic can't immediately help Belle-kun to increase his strength. The better the future prospects of this magic, which also means that the initial very useless of this magic. We'll talk to Belle-kun about the magic later. The key now is to connect the dagger to Belle-kun's favor. Hestia restrained her mind and pulled the newly made black short knife from the scabbard. No matter where it looked from anywhere, it was just an ordinary short knife, but after it was stained with Hestia's blood, sacred text began to appear on the knife. The words glowing white on the blade echoed the pale white light behind Belle. Connect. Hestia linked the sacred text of the dagger with the sacred text behind Belle. Slowly, the sacred text on the short knife began to change a little, and there was a line of words at the front, and this line of words also meant the completion of the inscription. Hestia breathed a sigh of relief after completing the connection. As long as Belle continues to grow, this short knife will grow with it. Now that the short knife has synchronized Belle's data, it will start to grow little by little in the next battle. I believe that soon, this knife will become Belle's most important weapon when it officially grows up. Hestia pressed the status bar back into the tattoo on Belle's back. Mr. Belle, it's done. Belle nodded and started putting on the coat he just took off. After getting dressed, Belle turned around, and at the same time saw the black dagger that was caught in the hand of Lord God. How should I put it, it was slightly different from what he had imagined. The sacred text on the blade was hidden, unlike what he knew before. Bell clearly remembers that the sacred text on the knife has never been hidden from the beginning. How can it be hidden so well now? But this is definitely good news. Ordinary things will not be missed by anyone, even if they only look ordinary. In the original book, the hero's knife will be targeted by the little human race because of the sacred text on the knife. Now this black dagger only looks like an ordinary dagger, and at most it's just that the blade has turned black. Noticing Bell's gaze, Hestia smiled and handed the dagger over. Bell-kun, this knife is the knife we built together. This knife is alive, as long as you use it to fight, then this short knife will grow up little by little. I named it he Blade of Stya. This is a weapon specially made by he Faith Toss. Don't look at it as an ordinary black knife, but the materials used are not ordinary. And it also has the 2 points of not bad and growth, and it doesn't even need to be do any maintenance on it. As long as it is used continuously, it will become more and more sharp. If there are other adventurers of Orari who know about the medium and short knives, they will definitely be greedy and even drool. Not bad is the best feature of a first-class weapon, which means that you don't need to replace the weapon frequently. Growth allows this weapon to maintain its amazing sharpness even without maintenance, and the knife is now in Bell's hands, P.S., for collections, for flowers, for evaluation, celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge, event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 44 Awakened Magic Again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bell looked a little surprised at the dagger. Weapons with not bad and growth characteristics, isn't this cheating? It doesn't even need maintenance, just use this short knife to make it sharper. So isn't this short knife the same thing as a pen that never ends? It was said in the original book that this sword has the ability to grow, and the Lord God said the same just now. But can this level of growth make the short sword need no further maintenance? It has the characteristics of not bad, and now it also has the characteristics of growth. This knife is almost the final fantasy of all adventurers, right? And if this kind of weapon really appeared, wouldn't other weapons be useless? With a tentative look, he looked at he Faith Toss God. Bell would like to ask this god, how did this god come up with this characteristic? Faith, the goddess with a mature big sister style, understood the doubts in Bell's eyes almost at a glance. I couldn't help sighing in my heart, it's really a pity for this child to follow such an idiot. If you go to the Freya Familia and the Loki Familia, it will definitely be promising. That's why I said that this kind of weapon was created just to make the craftsman disappear. As a craftsman, I really don't want to forge this kind of weapon. Saying that, he Faith hugged her chest with both hands, but this action seemed more mature. The atmosphere of a big sister came directly to the face. It's a pity that Bell is more focused on the short knife than the mature and intellectual big sister. After all, there are many mature and intellectual big sisters, but the short knife in her hand is the only one in this world. Isn't this only more interesting than big sister? Although he is not worthy of owning such a first-class weapon that is both not bad and growing, but after he really got it, Bell is still very grateful to the Lord God for his special request for his weapon, because Bell knew very well that such a weapon with the characteristics of not bad and growing would never have been made by God he Faith if it wasn't for the request of God Hestia. The birth of this weapon is simply to say that other weapons are waste. There is no doubt that this short knife is the strongest weapon of Orari today. Hestia immediately jumped up and ran to her friend's side to pull her arm when she heard her friend say that, shaking her friend's hand with some coquettishness. I know. So he Faith is the best that even though it was her rude request, he Faith Tos still complied with her request. Hestia is not stupid, of course she knows it's because of her. So Hestia was really thankful for he Faith Tos who only charged the most basic fee for fulfilling her request. The painting style of the lowly girl and the mature big sister is very sharp, and this atmosphere is marked with a blurred picture. From an outsider's point of view, the color of lilies flickered around the two of them. Bell also saw this scene, but he also quickly turned his attention. In this picture, he couldn't help but complete the 18+ Lily book plot in his mind. After all, this picture is so beautiful, it's like Rin Tosaka and Sakura Matsuo, like Altoria and Morgan, it's hard to divert your attention. Bell almost couldn't turn his eyes. If it weren't for his great perseverance, he might have looked at Faith Toss God with malicious eyes. He lowered his head and continued to look at the blade of Hestia in his hand. It has the characteristics of not bad and growth. No wonder this little black knife is so durable. Even with the addition of magic and hero strike, it is still very strong, and ordinary first-class products will definitely be scrapped because of this. Coupled with the fact that no maintenance is required, that leaves a lot of money and expense. This short knife is definitely the ideal for every adventurer. Of course, the reason is that this knife does not bother, and it is super economical, and the price/performance ratio is really nothing to say. As a short knife that can be used by LV.1 adventurers, it can even grow with the user, and a knife can almost be used to death, but unfortunately, this cost-effective short knife also has the unique feature. This special type of weapon is a human favor weapon. Without favor, there is no way to ask Faith to create it. The strongest weapon is already in hand. Although it is a short knife, the short knife is more flexible than the long knife, and it is also more suitable for close combat use. Combined with the magic of his choice, it is simply not disadvantageous in terms of melee combat. It's just that the magic he chose still needs some accessories as support. I don't know if it can be done like in the manga. No, it must be possible. The reason Bell chose Raiden as his magic in the first place was because of a comic. Let yourself thunder, just like opening an acceleration plug-in. All Bell needed was the ability to accelerate, as in that strange hallucinatory world where he ended up dashing towards the Black Dragon as a thunderbolt. Since he can do it in the illusion of obtaining magic, it means that he should have obtained that magic through the magic book. The acquired magic is not so much inspired as it is to guide one's wishes through the magic book, so that one can obtain that type of magic. For more details, just ask God-sama later. For this magic Bell is very optimistic. Maybe it's just self-acceleration, not reinforcement of other properties, but that's enough. After possessing the blade of Hestia, as long as you use that magic well, you may be able to kill those high-level adventurers at the fastest speed, although I don't know if it is possible to do this kind of sneak attack on adventurers of 2 or even 3 levels higher, but I can always look forward to it. As long as his strength continues to improve, the level of adventurers he can face will also become higher and higher. Mr. Bell. Hestia jumped directly onto Bell's back. The face that always had a rippling smile made people feel relaxed every time they looked at it, and Bell's mood slowly returned to calm every time he saw this smile. Hestia is a very special god to Bell. Looking at her smile will calm her mind unconsciously, but looking at her figure will make her mind restless. The update and connection have been completed. Also, Bell-kun, you have awakened another magic. PS, for collections, for flowers, for evaluation, celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 45 The Power of Magic Skin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Royal Thunder. Listening to Lord God's description, Bell's expression was as weird as it was. He just wanted magic that could transform himself into thunder and lightning, but the magic that was born turned out to be Leiyu. Especially after knowing the 2 annotations of quick attack magic and Emperor Raiden, Bell knew that this magic was slightly excessive, even more excessive than the flame lightning of the hero of the original book. In the original work, the male protagonist can still be regarded as magic, but is the Imperial Envoy thunder and lightning this magic? Surely this isn't power. But is power something that can be obtained from a magic book? Even if Bell's ability to accept is very good, he is still a little confused by this guess. He really didn't want to have a power, but this kind of play couldn't belong to the category of magic at all. After hesitating for a long time, Bell couldn't help but ask the question in his heart. Lord God, is this magic or power? Bell's question made Hestia subconsciously answer. Of course it's magic. Power is a special authority possessed by the gods, and it's the principle of the gods. Power and magic are completely different things. The power of the gods is the right to entrust a certain kind of principle, and magic is just a form in which it is manifested through incantation and magic as a medium. Simply put, magic itself needs the power to organize. Power is the power that the gods can use almost instinctively without the need to organize. Some forms of magic are indeed a bit like power, but most of those magics are through magic. The form of it only manifests part of its power. But after subconsciously explaining it like this, and after she re-understood the concept of magic and power, Hestia realized how similar Belle's awakened magic and power are. A quirky idea was born out of Hestia's novel. I saw Hestia stiffened her neck and turned to He Faith Tos behind her. He Faith Tos, what do you think? At this moment, He Faith Tos' whole body was stiff. After hearing Hestia's reiteration of the concept of magic and power just now, He Faith Tos also reacted immediately. Power and magic are different, magic needs to be prepared, but power is instant, and the concept of power is very broad and the application is relatively broad, not magic can be compared. But can't these descriptions applied to power also be applied to the magic awakened by Belle? Isn't this an awakening of power? Can powers be awakened by children of the lower realm? He Faith also had a lot of disbelief in her heart, but she also felt more and more that the problem was very big. Even demigods cannot awaken their powers, so how can children in the lower realms awaken their powers? So, not an awakened power, but a product in the name of magic instead of power? Isn't this more crap? Hestia, even a demigod cannot awaken power. I know. Even if the god in charge of the principle of sovereignty can let down his authority, it is not something that a demigod can steal, but what's going on with Mr. Bell? As far as introduction is concerned, it's almost like authority. Demigods can't awaken their power, let alone a child of the lower realm. How could Hestia, one of the gods, not know this truth? But that's because it's even weirder to know. Even Hestia could see that there was something wrong with Belle's awakening magic. To put it bluntly, this is the power of the skin of magic, otherwise this magic would not have such a wide range of applications, and the word envoy is also very problematic. Can magic be envoys? Power is the envoy, right? The harder she tried to think about this, the more Hestia felt that her child's awakening magic problem was very serious. This Nima really doesn't look like awakening magic, but rather like awakening power. If there is a difference, the favor system points to the power and says this is magic. Maybe, it's a little less in terms of ability. He Faith also didn't know how to say this, because the more she thought about it, the more she thought about it. It was the first time she had encountered something like this awakening magic, but awakened a power. Or maybe there is only such a real case in the whole orari. Moreover, if this magic is really a skin product of power, then no matter what happened to the child Belle, Hestia really made a lot of money. After the lower realm of the gods, excessive use of power is not allowed. Power and divine power are linked, and once power is used excessively, it will resonate with divine power. Maybe the gods are not forbidden to use their powers, but everyone has a degree in their hearts. If it exceeds this degree, it is really the same as choosing to be directly extradited to the heaven, but if Hestia's child awakens the power of the magic skin, then Hestia is like having a god who can use power unscrupulously. In this case, it is too much to make in the family. It is even said that the children of the Hestia family may be able to reproduce the glory of the Hera family and the Zeus family. This prediction made He Faith look at Hestia, the idiot, once again. This idiot has absolutely saved the world before. How could this idiot have such good luck if he hadn't saved the world? Meeting a child who was delivered to his door by himself, and who in just a few days was a space, precocious and skills and magic like luck. Now this child has awakened his powers beyond the magic skin. At this moment, Hestia doubted her luck. In fact, the luck of every god should be good, except for those poor gods and mildew gods. But why is she not as lucky as Hestia? Why can this waste god be able to have such a child delivered to her door when she lives in her house? Ah, This kid seems to have come to join me in the first place. Her faith toss paused. When this child came to Orali a few days ago, he came to her side to find a way to find a family, and the requirements were very low, and even his own position was clearly placed. It was she who recommended this child to Hestia at that time. After thinking about it, Faith couldn't help but feel a little regret in his heart. But this trace of regret disappeared after seeing Hestia's smile. Hey, this is also the fate of this child and Hestia. I just didn't expect that the fate of this child and Hestia was still me. After lamenting the impermanence of the world, Faith smiled and skipped what happened just now, P.S., for collections, for flowers, for evaluation, celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge, event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 46 Preparations for the second trip to the dungeon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Since returning to the ruins of the church with a small black knife that day, Bell has not been to the dungeon. He needs some preparation, as well as the development and research of power. As for Bell's awakening magic, its essence has been finalized by Hestia and Faith. Considering that the form of use is too similar to the power, they all agreed that it was the power of being covered, but it became Bell's power in the form of magic. However, correspondingly, the use of this power called magic will require a lot of magic power, and the power will not be as strong as power, and the fact is that it is really like what the God of God and Faith toss God guessed. When Bell went to experience the power of magic afterwards, he clearly felt that as long as he left his body, the magic power spent using magic would increase exponentially. But as long as the magic does not leave the range of the body, the consumption of magic power will decrease geometrically. In other words, the magic that Bell wanted to accelerate himself was obtained. It doesn't take a lot of magic to make oneself thunder, and the demand for magic is only increased when the power needs to be strengthened. And in addition to being able to use mine, it is also possible to add the characteristics of thunder and lightning to the weapon, and the magic power consumption is not very large. The use of these two magical aspects was enough for Bell. All Bell needed to do now was to officially turn that self-enhancing part into his own power. However, Bell didn't worry about going through the motions during this process. After all, the effect of personal training was not guaranteed. If the accumulated strength was listed as preparation, then the effect of the dress could be triggered. At night, outside the ruins of the church, Bell held the 9-character Kansada and maintained his stance. At night, there was no light around the ruins, but Bell could clearly see everything around him. His eyes have long been adapted to the darkness. He only needs a little light to see the world in the dark, and even the places where there is no light at all can gradually be seen. The evening wind was blowing around, and a leaf outside the Orali wall was blown into the wall by the evening wind. Coincidentally, the leaves floated less than 5 meters in front of Bell. Zizi, a blue electric arc appeared on Bell's skin. The lightning flashed away in the dark night, spanning a distance of 5 meters, the long knife drawn an arc in the night sky, and the leaves were also divided into two at the moment Bell passed the body. But because the speed exceeded time, the longitudinally cut leaves had not been completely separated. Bell quickly turned around and swept away the cut leaves again with the help of centrifugal force. The arc outside Bell's skin disappeared without a trace, and at the same time, it was like a leaf that was fixed in the air by time and was evenly cut into 4 pieces because the time returned to normal. The high temperature formed by the slash completely ignited the cut leaves, and before the leaves were separated, they were ignited and turned into black ash in the air. After finishing the action of retracting the knife, Bell breathed a sigh of relief. I'm starting to become more controllable. Lightning is not a power that can be easily controlled. After the body is thundered, the original senses and perception of speed will all change, and this process needs to be adapted. In the future, the process of speeding up the road with lightning will become the norm, and we must adapt to this state of lightning. Fortunately, Bell's personal training played a big role here. After entering the lightning at the beginning, the distance and speed generated by one step made Bell unable to adapt to it, and even smashed directly on the wall. But later, through exercise and habit, I gradually started to get used to this state, and at the same time as this habit, Bell was also working hard to speed up his thinking at the same time. There is a big weakness in the lightning transformation of a moment, and that moment is the biggest weakness. Lei Hua's movement will lose the sense of distance and the perception of speed. If it is not used properly, it will be used in reverse. Therefore, Lei Hua's acceleration also needs to be accompanied by the acceleration of thinking. In addition to magic that can gradually become controllable, the progress in swordsmanship is not small. But I don't know which year of the monkey I need to complete that trick. Secret Sword, Yen Return is the pinnacle of swordsmanship, and it is Bell's only highest combat swordsmanship that is not considered magic or skill. That move can almost achieve multidimensional twists and turns, successfully surpassing the constraints of time and space, and it is almost a sword skill that kills with one hit. It's just that this trick is too difficult to complete, even more difficult than imagined. Bell, who had received the swordsman's lifelong experience in swinging a sword, couldn't do it anyway. It's not that he can't do that skill, but that he can't achieve the phenomenon of multidimensional twists and turns with the simplest swing of the sword. Just the level of swinging the sword Bell was infinitely close to that swordsman's dying level. But even so, that sword skill still could not be completed. Perhaps it was an opportunity to complete that sword skill, or perhaps he was far inferior to that swordsman in some places. Basic sword swinging needs to continue to be practiced. After completing a day's tasks every day, we need to find time to continue the training of sword swinging. The difference between me and the swordsman should be perseverance. Since the swordsman can, if I can do it, then with the experience of his life, there is no way I can't do it. It's not that Bell's heart is higher than the sky, but because his conditions are really much better than that of the swordsman. In addition, Bell also has the experience of that swordsman completing Secret Sword, Yen Return. Even if he can't complete that sword skill now, it doesn't mean that he can't complete it in the future. For this swordsmanship, Bell had been standing on the shoulders of that swordsman from the very beginning, which was much more oriented than a swordsman who didn't know what to do. After taking the 9 characters Kansada back into the 4-dimensional space, Bell used his breath to calm down his state. 3 days later, my body has become accustomed to the strengthened state. Magic and swordsmanship have almost mastered the fur, and the next step is to go to the dungeon. Bell didn't go directly to the dungeon after coming back. If he went to the dungeon without adjusting his state, he would not be responsible for his own life. Everyone has only one life, and it takes care and careful preparation for this, and these 3 days of preparation are enough, and the next time is to go to the dungeon to accumulate experience. After the pre-war preparations, the next step is the actual combat training. The strength that is trained is prepared for actual combat. If the strength of training cannot be used in actual combat, it means that the training is useless. The actual combat in the dungeon is also the place to test the results of Bell's 3 days of hard work. P.S. For collections, for flowers, for evaluation, celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 47. You Are My Encounter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mr. Bell. The moment he heard the sound, Bell let his hands drag his hands back to the god Sama who had thrown himself on his back. Probably because he had been pounced dozens of times, Bell's body reacted almost subconsciously. It's just that the place where he dragged it with his hand made Bell feel a little rude. But because Lord God didn't mind and gave him the qualifications to do so, Bell began to become more accustomed to it. Mr. Bell, is the evening exercise over? Well, today's training is over. Magic and swordsmanship have already mastered what I can master at this stage. Next, I need to go to the dungeon to verify the results of my efforts these days. The next step is to go to the dungeon to see the results of his hard work for so long. Bell is not worried that his efforts will turn into a bubble. According to the situation of the dungeon, his efforts will definitely be rewarded, but even so, he needs to go through the verification of the dungeon, and it has been 8 days since I entered the dungeon for the first time, and now I need to go to the dungeon to adapt to the atmosphere below. Of course, even so, Bell wasn't going to go to the 2nd floor, or even the 3rd floor, just now. In order to verify his ability, what he needs is not an equal opponent, but an opponent who is suitable for his stage. Hestia also knew that Belle would be ready to go to the dungeon once he got used to the power. But now she is no longer as worried as she was at first. Hestia believes that her children can definitely come back from the dungeon. And it will grow up a little bit in the dungeon. Mr. Bell, you should be preparing to enter the middle class next, right? No. Bell directly denied the question asked by Lord God. Naturally, there is an idea for the middle-level Bell, but it is not now. Whether the power mastered by oneself is suitable for going to the middle level requires continued verification before a conclusion can be reached. For now, though, Bell has no plans to move directly into the mid-tier. Sir God, I will continue to accumulate combat experience in the upper layer, and at the same time improve my current basic value. Only after my foundation reaches the limit of the upper layer will I be ready to go to the middle layer. If I don't do enough, I wouldn't have thought like that until I was ready. The most taboo thing about being a person is to be too ambitious. People, you can only look at the road in front of you. Bell knew this, so from the outset he planned to move slowly, not to take it all in one step. Think that you have magic similar to power, and even a first-level weapon can do whatever you want at the lower level. You must know that the biggest problem in the lower floors is never monsters, but adventures. Its own speciality cannot be exposed at will, which means that Bell needs to pay attention to this problem at all times. And it is often necessary to find the deepest part of a floor, a place where almost no adventurers move. In order to achieve this, Bell knew that he couldn't keep moving forward like he was looking for adventurers, even targeting the middle class from the beginning. It's just that after he finished speaking his thoughts, Bell also felt that his actions were a bit sloppy. This made Bell a little embarrassed to ask the Lord God. Lord God, isn't this kind of thinking of mine very useless? Hestia woke up from her stupor. She burst out laughing, and after a while, Hestia pressed her head to Bell's face. No. Fear of death is a normal phenomenon that everyone has. Not only children in the lower realm are afraid of death, but even the gods in the lower realm are also afraid of death. Maybe we are different from children in the lower realm and will not really die. At most, it is a long, long time in the heavens after death. But for our gods, endless life and boring days are what we fear most. Mr. Bell, in fact, our gods were not like this a long, long time ago. In fact, Hestia had no intention of mentioning how they existed in the past. But now Hestia couldn't help but want to tell her children the past of the gods, a boring and equally meaningless past. We in the sky have mastered our respective duties from the moment we were born. At that time, we were all pure white. We have always been at a loss for our own existence, because for our gods, there is actually nothing to do. We don't care about the meaning of things, not even when, because there is no change for us. This makes us feel that our existence is meaningless. But until one day, the lower realm and the heavenly realm are connected, which also allows us to see everything in the lower realm. From the lower realm, we also see changes that are different from us, and even say that they will never exist. That is to say, from that time, we, who remain the same, began to change, and began to have some humanity. I know happiness, I know sadness, I know excitement, and I also know expectations. We have changed for hundreds of millions of years. That's when we started to formulate the rules of the lower realm, and our lower realm is also to find various kinds of something. That throbbing, or that anticipation. We have begun to change without changing. No god knows whether this change is good or bad, but all gods look forward to change. That is, after the lower realm brings us changes, we in the heavenly realm are no longer what we used to be. Dead, we are also full of energy. A lifeless figure appeared in Hestia's eyes, and that figure was like a marionette with no ego at all. But after the blink of an eye, the figure in the eyes turned into the always smiling Hestia. This was something that their gods never thought of in the past. As gods, they would be influenced by children from the lower realm. The gods in the sky came down from the heaven one by one in order to find what they want. In this process of change, we also began to have many changes in different directions. Some good gods began to move in the direction of goodness, while some evil gods also moved in the direction of evil. No matter what you do, some people will hate and like it, maybe it's because of their different ideals, or maybe it's just to express their unhappiness. But I really hate those guys, if those guys can be sent back to the heaven. The situation in the lower bounds is much better. But Bell, you have to remember, we all came to the nether to find our own encounters. We like the changes of children in the nether, and we also agree with each child's choice. So, Bell, what you made I will support you in any choice. Because, you are my encounter. P.S. For collections, for flowers, for evaluation, celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge, event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 48 Lively Dungeon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Fuck. A bolt of lightning quickly shuttled through the first floor of the dungeon, and all the goblins on the road instantly turned into black ashes as the lightning passed, but their magic stones and daggers still recorded their existence. Crack. The wall made a strange noise, and dozens of holes suddenly appeared on the flat wall, and in each hole was curled a goblin clutching a short knife. This is how dungeon monsters are born. Adventurers who see it for the first time will definitely feel uncomfortable, because only then will the adventurers remember that they are in the stomach of a monster called dungeon. Just this kind of knowledge makes many adventurers feel uncomfortable. Dozens of goblins landed at the same time. Such a scene is really spectacular. Unfortunately, the thunderbolt that harvested the goblins quickly appeared again. Before the dozens of goblins had any movement, they had turned black and gray, like the goblins that had just been cleaned up. It's just that the flash of lightning stopped this time, and the people inside can also be observed with the naked eye. Bell, who turned into lightning, stopped and took a deep breath. The consumption of physical and magic power was a bit too much. He, who had been on the first floor of the dungeon, hardly stopped for the past 15 minutes, which also caused Lei Hua to consume almost 80% of Bell's magic power. Continuing to maintain it like before will cause the mana to be depleted, and it will be easy to faint in the dungeon. This also forced Bell to stop, listening carefully to the surrounding voices. The walls did not continue to generate monsters, and Bell could take advantage of this time to clean up the falling objects in the ground. Those goblins' magic stones are cheap, but those short knives are not cheap. After taking a deep breath, Bell quickly cleaned up the things on the ground. After a simple calculation of the goblin knives he got, Bell found that there were 241 of them. He had already killed so many goblins in just a few minutes, so it took a whole day to come to the dungeon for the first time. In such a place Bell clearly saw his growth. Compared to the first time he came down, he was undoubtedly much stronger. But after possessing the magic, it is very terrifying to be able to speed up the progress to such a level. The actual combat application of Lei Hua is not bad. However, is the magic power consumed by Lei Hua a little low? This question also puzzled Bell. The mana consumption acting on oneself has dropped geometrically, but this magic should not last so long, and it can retain 20% of the mana. In the previous 3 days, Bell confirmed his level of magic power, and at the same time he knew how much magic power it would take to make a thunderbolt, but the final support time was definitely not as long as today. There must be a reason. Find the reason, and if I can make better use of it, I can increase my activity time. Thinking so, Bell put the blade of Hestia into the 4-dimensional space and took out the 9 characters. The next step is to restore the magic power, and then start to find the reason why the magic power can last for so long. Then the tactics that need to be used next are not quick attack battles, but research battles. These are the 2 fighting styles Bell uses, downwind research and headwind fast attack. 1 floor is no longer a threat to Bell, so a quick goblin harvest is not needed. With that kung fu, it is better to hone your skills and reach the height of Yan Hui as soon as possible. And now there are some situations that Bell doesn't know about. This unknown is often accompanied by risks and uncontrollable, so it is necessary to know what is going on. After a short rest, Bell felt that his magic power had recovered by nearly 20%, and the recovery speed was terrifying enough. But Bell knew why the magic power recovered so quickly. Meditation. As long as you enter meditation during rest, you can quickly restore physical strength and magic power. And during meditation, your 5 senses will be strengthened. You can pay attention to the surrounding situation at any time, even if you are resting in the dungeon, you can use it. There was a sudden sound of footsteps in his ears, which made Bell, who was ready, frown slightly, and immediately hid in the darkness. 2 footsteps approached, one was dull, the other was even more dull. It should be 2 heavy adventurers. There aren't even goblins on the first floor today. A slightly sturdy voice came from the end of the voice. It's just that Bell could hear a little irritability in the voice, and it's only the first floor that only adventurers who have just become adventurers will come, right? Usually there are no people here. Why are there people here today? It's so lively below, but the first floor is so quiet. What a hell. Lively? Bell couldn't help but prick up his ears. It is absolutely not a good word to use the word lively in a dungeon. Once the dungeon starts to become lively, it means that the monsters in the dungeon have rebelled. No adventurer wants to encounter a lively scene in a dungeon. The footsteps got closer, and Bell, who was hiding in the dark, could be regarded as seeing the 2 people brought by the footsteps. One of them was full of stubble, with a fierce look, and a pair of dangling eyes made people feel that this person was a little mean and a little indifferent. The burly figure should be more than 180 centimeters, and he is wearing very cheap equipment. The giant blade on his back can see the gap on the blade, which should have not been maintained for a long time. As for the other one, Bell was a little surprised, not expecting to see it at such a time. Wearing a white windbreaker, with his head hidden inside the windbreaker, you can see only numbness and despair in the eyes covered by the hood. Carrying a backpack that is several times larger than himself already shows the identity of the other party, not an adventurer, but a supporter. Mainly responsible for the drop and recovery of magic stones, as well as luggage and the like. Lililuca Erd, a volunteer who belongs to the Soma Familia. Because of his status as a volunteer, and because he is also bewitched by the wine of the god of wine, he is the best object to be squeezed in the eyes of the adventurers of the family. Bell noticed the numbness and despair on Lililuca's face. There was no hope in those eyes. But other than that, Bell didn't pay too much attention to the other party. Instead, it was the words of another adventurer that made him more concerned. Hey, don't you tell me. Come on, it's boring. Seeing that Lililuca didn't answer, the adventurer pouted in disgust. It's just that he didn't care about this kind of thing. Sooner or later, for volunteers who are often oppressed, it will become like this one day. It's a waste of time to talk to someone who has given up completely at such a time. In his opinion, this little human race has only this function. It's just that the adventurer didn't speak again after speaking, which made Bell no way to know what the hustle he was talking about was going on. Is it because of me, that when he didn't understand the situation like this, Bell's first doubt was himself? Perhaps the reason why the dungeon is generating monsters too quickly and quickly. But will this effect radiate to the entire dungeon? P.S. For collections, for flowers, for evaluation, celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 49 The White Gap. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After the adventurers and volunteers circled the first floor, they still didn't find any monsters. This phenomenon makes the adventurer a little strange. Are all the goblins killed? That the dungeon has just started to become lively, and adventurers are sure that there will be no adventurers on the first floor. Goblins are monsters in the early stages, and most adventurers who have left the novice will not waste time on the first floor. He originally thought so too, but he didn't expect that an adventurer had already cleaned up the first floor. Do you have to go to the second floor again? The adventurer frowned and thought. It's still early today, so if you go back because of this, it means that you won't even be able to earn 1 Phalis today. But the monsters on the second floor were just throwing a party. On the second floor, monsters such as goblins are not the only basic monsters, but strange things like killer ants and man-eating frogs also appear. Any LV.1 adventurer who is targeted by so many monsters has no choice but to die, but it is also a fact that there is not a single monster on the first floor. the man was irritably clutching his hair, he didn't want to waste a day without even earning one phallus. If he can't make money, maybe he won't be able to taste the divine wine this month. The man glanced at the volunteer, and his irritability was relieved a little. Of course, it wasn't because he saw how good this little human was, but he thought, if the second floor was in danger, wouldn't this volunteer be useful? Hey, let's go to the second floor. Lily Luca, who was a volunteer, didn't say anything, just followed. After the two were far away, Belle frowned and walked out. It seems that other than the first floor, monster feasts have also occurred on other floors. Is that my reason? That there were too many things to think about, but Belle felt vaguely that this lively might really have something to do with him. Otherwise, the first floor he was in wouldn't have produced so many monsters. Perhaps it was because of this change in the first floor where he was located that the operation of the dungeon radiated to other floors. Perhaps this is the answer. Is this also luck? It seems that this luck is only for me. Those adventurers from other classes may have suffered. Of course, even so Belle has no so-called guilt. Why does he have such feelings? It's not that he controlled the dungeon to operate like this. If he did it on purpose, then he would have nothing to say. But maybe this is just a radiation of the dungeon's luck to him. It can only be said that those adventurers who are recruited are unlucky. Of course, this kind of suffering is only for ordinary adventurers. Not a bad thing for those capable adventurers. For adventurers, drops are similar to rewards that appear with a small probability, and most of the source of income for adventurers is still magic stones. The output of a large number of monsters also means the output of a large number of magic stones. Of course, this is only for powerful adventurers. Those weak adventurers will probably have a headache how to escape from so many monsters. Belle shook his head slightly but just sat to the side to rest. Now he is not very anxious to explore the reason for the longer battery life. It should be that my dungeon responded to my expectations, and under the circumstances of high luck, the entire dungeon formed a monster feast situation. I didn't expect that my luck could even affect the dungeon. The last time I went to the guild from the dungeon, Ina-san said the same thing. And also made a corresponding warning. It seems that I need to restrain myself. If this phenomenon occurs frequently in the dungeon, the guild will start further investigation. Once the intensity of the investigation starts to increase, maybe my matter will be exposed. Now, not yet. Even if you know that your affairs will be exposed sooner or later, you can hide for as long as you can. Belle hopes that he can grow as much as possible during this free time. Perhaps, at least to the height of LV.5, in order to live in peace in this city. Be careful now, so as not to cause trouble to the Lord God. Don't cause trouble for yourself, don't cause trouble for the gods. This is Belle's current benchmark. Excessive excellence often attracts the coveting of other gods, so it is quite necessary to behave in general. Belle sat on the ground and rested for a long time. His magic power and physical strength were almost completely restored, and the goblin on the first floor was finally born naturally. Instead of dozens of them at first, only one appeared in front of Belle's eyes now. Listening carefully to the surrounding sounds, there is the sound of something falling far away. It should be that the monsters born this time are not in one spot, but scattered in various places on the first floor. However, such a situation is also normal. After all, there are not many goblins on the first floor that refresh each round, and it is normal for the born goblin branches to be everywhere on the first floor. Belle gave the goblins a lot of time, and after seeing the goblins stand up with their daggers, he took out the 9 characters Kansada from the 4-dimensional space. Let me see. This time Belle is not a quick action. The quick attack is too focused on the results, but ignores many details. So this time Belle needs to see more subtle changes. The goblin hunched over, and when he saw an opportunity, he rushed up with a strange cry of Yaha. If it had been 8 days before, Belle would have avoided the attack and found a suitable opportunity to strike, but not now. Taking a step forward, the sword in his hand poured out with a silver light. Puff! Boom! A knife slashed the goblin's knife-wielding hand, and green blood spurted out. It was at this moment that Belle noticed something. A white gap appeared on the goblin's body. Because the whole body of the goblins is green, a white gap is particularly abrupt. Bell's eyes narrowed and he slashed away. That gap was in the goblin's chest, and the goblin who lost a hand lost the possibility of blocking it. A cross-cut knife directly hit the white gap. It was at this moment that the goblin with a small cut in his chest instantly turned into black ashes. Died? I didn't cut deep enough. That goblin would never be killed because of such a shallow wound, but it turned into black ashes. Is that white gap the lifeline of a monster? Is it the same thing that the demon I can see? But Bell still felt weird. Even if he could see it, why did he see the goblin just now? P.S. Ask for collection, ask for flowers, ask for evaluation, celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 50, Crit and Sucking Magic. You are listening at Novelfull.audio. If it's the demon eyes of immediate death, it won't be seen after the action. And if it's the demon eyes that see it, it won't be only one. After a simple analysis, Bell confirmed that getting the white marks was not the so-called deadline, but something else he didn't expect. What is it? For a moment Bell couldn't understand, but Bell, who couldn't understand it, also knew that he couldn't continue standing still, and soon he was looking for other goblins born on the first floor. Listening carefully to the movements around him, Bell felt that his hearing was even sharper than 10 minutes ago, and even the smallest sounds had entered his hearing range. Bell knew in his heart why this was, and he had long been accustomed to this kind of strength and evolution of his own. There were more questions to answer, but Bell was even less anxious. Finding the problem is the best. If you can't find the problem, you don't know where to go. The problem of magic endurance needs to find the cause. The white gap that appeared on the goblin also needed to be found. Bell, holding the 9 characters Kensada, walked a little bit towards the source of the sound. It's just that the source of the sound keeps getting closer, and soon Bell has seen the 3 goblins coming towards him. It seems that I rushed over after hearing the call from the goblin just now. It saved me a lot of trouble. Soon there were 3 more goblins rushing towards him. Bell was directly uncharacteristically, an arc appeared on the skin of his body, and the lightning acted directly. Bell, who transforms into a thunder, swings his sword quickly while moving at lightning speed. Lightning flashed, and the arms of the 3 goblins flew into the air. Bell immediately glanced back at the goblin's body, and the white gap appeared again. 2 appeared on the back and 1 appeared in front of the body. Bell waved his knife again, aiming at the 2 white goblins on his back. The previous cut was actually very shallow, but this time Bell saw the depth cut in half again, looking like he had just scratched the goblin's skin. Yahaha! The 2 made a shrill cry at the same time as Bryn, their bodies trembling uncontrollably, as if they were enduring intense pain. Bell was a little surprised by this strange phenomenon, but it was certain that even a slight scratch could cause extraordinary damage just by seeing the white gap. It's not a dead line that kills, but a damage line that deals a lot of damage. This phenomenon gave Bell a sense of déjà vu. He always felt that the situation was in his throat, but he couldn't say it all at once. No longer tangled, and quickly used the thunder to come to the front of the remaining goblin. That white gap hasn't disappeared yet. It's about 3 seconds later, that gap disappears without a trace. Suddenly Bell responded. He understands what that white gap that can cause a lot of damage is. Crit. That's right, this is the white highlight that appeared after attacking the goblins. In FGO, as long as you deal damage, you will get crit stars, and the larger the number of crit stars, the greater the probability of crit will appear when you attack in the next round. The crit, of course, can cause a larger amount of damage. 1 question answered, all questions answered. Bell immediately swung a knife horizontally, and the goblin who hadn't reacted was instantly headed. Taking a step forward, he turned around and swung the knife at the goblin who was lying on the ground because of the pain. The heads of the 2 goblins were chopped off, and their bodies quickly turned black and gray. At this moment, Bell clearly felt something flowing into his body from the void, and quickly replenished the magic power that he did not consume much. Now all the answers have been verified, and all the questions just now have been answered. Critical hit. I didn't expect that the white highlight gap turned out to be the highlight cursor of the critical hit. It's no wonder that the consumption of the thunderbolt was much lower than expected. That's not the consumption of magic power at all, but the energy contained in the goblin's body was absorbed when the damage was done to the goblin. This energy converted into magic that I can use. If that's the case, then it's understandable what's going on with the initial battery life. This is undoubtedly a good thing for Bell. Of course, even the crit thing is the same. As long as a certain level of battle is done and a certain amount of damage is caused, a highlight mark of a critical strike will appear on the body of the battle target, and a hit can cause astonishing damage, which is very important for future battles. In the future, when encountering monsters with thick blood that cannot easily cause fatal damage, the existence of critical strikes is quite important. For Bell, who is preparing to be a lone ranger in the future, the way to increase the damage is very important. Because Bell is destined to be unable to carry out a protracted battle in the dungeon in the future. It is very important to avoid being dragged into protracted battles as much as possible, so the appearance of crit is a kind of supplementary damage. However, critical strikes should not always appear. After all, this is not a game. As long as you attack, you can generate critical strike stars. As long as a certain number of critical strike stars are piled up, the probability of critical strikes will increase. In reality, this kind of critical strikes there should be another explanation. Perhaps it is because of the movement of the body and the circulation of blood that there are spots that produce severe pain. The so-called critical highlight is actually telling me where the spots of severe pain are. Bell feels that this explanation is a lot more reliable, which is much more scientific and more realistic than the crit system that exists in the game. After confirming the answer in his heart, Bell's mood relaxed a lot. Today's task is complete: Lehua's actual combat training, swordsmanship training, exploring the truth of the white highlight cursor, and exploring the reason why Lehua's magic power continues. Gone back. Shaking his head, Bell stopped thinking about those questions. Today's lively inside the dungeon is caused by him. Even if he pretends to be those who can't bear the feast of monsters, no one will doubt it. If the same phenomenon occurs on other floors, then many adventurers with insufficient strength will inevitably choose to leave the dungeon earlier. It's too easy to mix in with those people. Thinking of this, Bell immediately retracted the 9 characters Kansata back to the 4-dimensional space, and at the same time quickly headed towards the passage back to the ground. When Bell was near the exit, he saw many adventurers walking up the stairs. Bell also heard the complaints of those adventurers. It's weird, why is there a riot in the dungeon today? Monster Feast appeared on so many floors. Who said it wasn't? I almost fell down today and couldn't come back. What the hell is going on? It doesn't usually happen like this. Yeah. Since the one 7 or 8 days ago, this should be the second time. I don't want to face this kind of riot often, or I don't know if I can climb out of it tomorrow. Right. It seems that the same phenomenon occurred 7 or 8 days ago. Listening to these people's words, Bell lowered his hood subconsciously, reducing his presence as much as possible. P.S. For collections, for flowers, for evaluation.ps. The second update will be a little later, so let's watch it tomorrow, celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th.